So I exit pit lane and go full send to corner 2, and yeah, I saw God.
So in the last episode, I flew all the way to Canada to compete in my first ever endurance race. And even though I set new records in the simulator, I was miles away in the real car. I left the track on Saturday feeling kind of dejected, not knowing where I could find that extra 2 seconds that Mark had over me. So realistically, the only way I was going to figure this out was to look deep into the data. And that's where we found something that would totally change my approach for Sunday's race.
That's the high.
I arrived faster. I arrived at 162, which you arrived at 150.8.
Okay.
150.8.
Yeah.
12 kilometers slower.
Yeah.
Top speed. How's that possible? I know the exit was worse, but not.
No, I'm questioning if it was in that limp mode.
Yeah, maybe the car was sucking wind.
Yeah, I think this could have been limp mode.
How much time is that?
1.8 seconds. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're
Okay, so I'm not gonna try and gain 1 second in just that one high-speed corner.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Good to know, because I would have done it tomorrow morning. So.
Just don't let the car go into limp mode.
Yeah.
Jeez. Obvious.
So it turns out my driving wasn't the issue. It was limp mode. In this mode, the car's gonna drop down the power to protect that engine, and usually there's a check engine light to let you know it's gonna happen, but for some reason, this car does not do that, and it also will throw limp mode for no reason. It's literally random whether or not you get limp mode with this car when you fire up, so hopefully this isn't a problem for the race. But good news, I'm only 0.2 of a second off in driving in the corners compared to Mark's best, so I have a lot more confidence for Sunday's race. Morning everyone, so we're about to go start for this 8-hour race with Lucky Dog Canada. Super excited about it. The track's still a little greasy because it looked like it rained a lot overnight. It's cooler, so there's definitely going to be a different car balance and feeling, I think, for the first few laps, but main goal, it's an 8-hour race. It's, you know, to finish first, you must finish. Hopefully we're keeping it on track and giving the car off to the next guy in a decent position, so excited for it. So this brings us to qualifying. Well, there isn't any. In this series, it's first come, first serve. So as soon as the pace car makes its way down pit lane, you are free to take your starting position.
That's the pace car, yeah.
Should we be going now?
We should be lining up.
Should we go?
Let's get going, yeah.
I was expecting this Mad Dash Le Mans style race start, but it turns out, well, no one else was in a rush, so we got pole position with ease. So as you could probably tell by how much wheel spin there was coming out of the pits, the track is very green. There was a monstrous amount of rain overnight, and it's mostly dry, but you can see close to the curbs there's a little bit of water, and heading into turn 1 there's a literal river, which is going to take a very long time to dry. So tire temperature is going to be absolutely paramount for this race start. So this being my first ever endurance race, I wasn't really sure what the right strategy was for the start. So I elected for what I would do in a normal sprint race and just drive as fast as I possibly can to make a gap to the cars behind, which, well, I'd say I was rather successful at for the first lap. And that just prevents the chances of me having a crash early on in the stint. Now, if you remember how the car was performing in part 1 back in Saturday's practice, the car was not moving around as much as it is right now. I mean, look how much work I'm doing on the wheel. And this is basically purely down to the low grip conditions, the green track that we're running in, and the temperatures just being low in the tires at this point. I know there are several cars behind us that have better single lap pace than us, so I know that I need to push as hard as possible right now. And my team's just relayed to me over the radio that I'm 8 seconds clear, so this is looking pretty good. So we found out in the data session last night that the car was in limp mode during my fast lap attempt. And now we can confirm that the car has made it above 160 kilometers an hour down the back straight, so I will not be having this issue, at least not for my stint. Up to this point, it's just been about pulling a gap and treating this as a sprint race, but it didn't take more than 3 laps before I started coming across lap traffic. This is where the real skill of an endurance driver starts to show. In my open wheel sprint races, I know the characteristics of every driver I'm about to overtake, so I can kind of predict what's going to happen before it even happens. In this case, I've seen maybe 3 or 4 different drivers drive this yellow car I'm passing, so I don't really know what the reaction is going to be when I come up on them quickly, so I have to judge every overtake with a completely blank slate mentality. We're dealing with a ton of variables here compared to any race I've done in the past. And all it takes is one car to really get in your way before that 8-second gap totally vanishes. Yeah, I might have hung this guy out to dry a little bit, but with P2 breathing down my neck, I needed to make every overtake as fast as possible. Now, one of the techniques Mark told me was that if you actually pull out way in advance and you actually don't take the driver by surprise, you let them know you're coming, they will generally sort of let you around. And that's very different from what I'm used to, but this being amateur racing means that people would rather not crash than save their ego from being lapped one more time in an 8-hour race. Now, I seem to be handling the traffic fairly okay at this point, but this river in turn 1 is causing us so many problems. For some reason, the car behind me is actually gaining time massively through that river, like as if the river isn't even there. And to make matters worse, now P3, the red 944, has caught up to us as well. So here's a clip that'll give you a better idea of how much time I'm losing through this puddle. And just like that, the 944 takes the inside. He was going so quickly, I didn't want to waste too much time battling him when I thought our main rival might be this other BRZ, which unfortunately got the inside line as well, but I managed to hold the outside. I managed to hold him through Sector 1 fairly well, but then heading into Sector 2, he goes for a late lunge, which I was definitely not expecting. I get on the marbles, and that gives him the inside heading into Sector 3. So now, in the span of half a lap, I've gone from P1 all the way down to P3. I'm not gonna lie, when I heard the time 8-second gap in the beginning, I sort of thought I was gonna have this race made. But what I'm banking on now is that I can carve through the traffic better than they can, and hopefully I can get that lead back. Yeah, I wasn't exactly happy at the black BMW. He was doing some weird stuff in practice as well. Again, there could be any of the drivers driving the car right now. I don't know exactly who it was. But that car had some very dodgy behavior all throughout Saturday's practice, and talking to some other people, apparently that's not unusual either. But regardless, I need to find a way to get past him as fast as possible because we can already see the white BRZ gapping us. I did eventually get around that black BMW, but I'm now ages behind the white BRZ in P2. So you can see how just a little bit of bad traffic can really put you on the back foot. But that's a two-way street, and the same could definitely happen to our rivals as well. And just to show you how different some of the cars are in this class, the car in front of me is a BRZ just like mine, but they're running a supercharged motor. We're running completely stock. Also, look how much faster they are after going through the puddle through turn 1. They're probably gaining about half a second through there, whereas I'm gaining about 4 seconds through the rest of the track on them. I'm guessing they're also running a stock suspension because look at the body roll in the rear of their car. And then look in comparison to the white BRZ on the left, that's our teammate, and they have almost no body roll, which means we're running a lot stiffer than the other teams. But regardless of suspension setup, that turn 1 puddle is treacherous, and it's already had its first victim. Luckily, the driver was not injured, but that was a pretty serious accident, and it's really checked up the field, so you'll notice now 2 cars ahead of us is P2 again. So now the fight is very much alive again. So that white car is run by Team Numi, which had the second fastest lap in Saturday's practice, but we don't know exactly what their car is running. We know it's manual, we know they have wider tires, we know they probably have more downforce, and they're probably a little bit more draggy on the straights as a result. On the car side, I can definitely tell they have more grip mid-corner than us, but I also know it's their fastest driver in the car at the moment, so maybe over the course of 8 hours, our lap time will actually average better than theirs. The two of us ended up battling through the rest of this hour-and-a-half long sprint. They had a fuel cell, so they went an extra 30 minutes than I could, but the GoPro battery died, so we didn't catch me actually re-overtaking for P2. But I did not last long in second place because we started getting a fuel starvation issue despite still having a quarter of a tank full. It's not something a team's ever experienced before, but I basically just had to push through it, and I was losing between 2 and 4 seconds a lap because of that issue.
20 minutes later.
Okay, so first stint done. That was an hour and a half. It went by actually really fast. It was literally a sprint race for an hour and a half. But yeah, we were paddling nonstop, and there was a certain point where I think we both just kind of like sat in our positions and didn't try and fight too much because we want a chance of, you know, fighting the 944, who's got like quite a bit of pace on both of us. But my God, that was fun. I was not expecting it to be as intense as it was, and I'm actually like sore. I mean, I haven't been in a car for a year and a half, so my shoulders are a bit sore, even with the power steering. You know, you just end up fighting this car so much. Now it's in Mark's hands. This is my teammate Mark, who is the team owner of Apex and was by far the pace setter of Saturday's practice.
Update, we're on the leaders. Looks like the new driver in the red Porsche is slow. So Mark is currently trying to overtake. And he's done it. He's done it. We're in the lead. Just like that. That's how quickly it can change.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Where we're winning out right now is definitely on consistency across the drivers. Like Mark and I are both quick, and hopefully whoever our third driver is, we're not really sure yet, is going to be quick as well, and then we'll be off to the races. So, but it's definitely down to fuel at this point as our disadvantage. We need to make up like 2.5 laps to try and stay in the lead. So fingers crossed.
1 hour later.
It turns out I'm not doing the next stint. Jeff is actually going to hop into the car. He hasn't done any practice this weekend, so it'll probably take a few laps to get up to speed, but he should do just fine. He's a lot of experience here. So Mark's doing a great job at the moment. He's done a 2-minute flat, which is very, very quick, and then he's been consistently kind of in the low mid 201s like I was doing until the fuel starvation. So we're definitely more consistent than the other teams at this point. I think the 944 and the other BRZ are doing something like 205, 206s consistently with their slower drivers. So we're in a good position here. Still leading by quite a margin, but still need to make up more time to make up time for that lack of a fuel cell. It looks like Vinicius in the second car is doing some ridiculously quick lap times, considering it's his first time. So he's only about 2 seconds off of Mark's best lap time, which is it's actually insane. Right now the cars are P1, P2. Can't complain.
And with the track drying up quickly, Mark and Vinny were both setting some of the fastest times of this race.
Yeah, at this rate, we're going to have both cars in contention for the win, or at least on the podium for sure.
And now that we're 3 hours into this race, it's time to get ready for the second pit stop. And this time, it's Jeff, our chief mechanic, who's hopping in the car. And to make matters more interesting, he was busy working on the cars on Saturday, so hasn't done a single lap of practice yet.
Some more oil. Looks like we're running a little low. There he goes. Jeff's in the car now. See what times he can put in.
That was fun.
Yeah, you're quick.
The balance of the car right now is just phenomenal. It reminds me of an S2000. You're just steering with the rear.
Yeah, exactly. Straight on entry and then power down and settle it. It's great.
How was your stint?
That was good, man. Other than turn 1, which is where I was losing a lot of time. I don't know why, but I think the Numi car was just so much more planted on the entry over the water for some reason. But other than that, we were quicker everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's the setup that the way the car behaves right now. It's so oversteery. It's hurting us there, but we can get rotation and all the lower speed stuff or mid speed stuff.
Yeah.
That's why we're faster than them. So.
And then, out of nowhere, our conversation was interrupted.
What was that for? Black flag? Essentially, Jeff had to just do a drive-through, but not because of a penalty. He forgot to turn traction control off before he left the pits. So you apparently can do it if you're less than 60 k's an hour. So there's a way to do it if you do it really slowly in the hairpin. But he didn't do that. He decided to do it in the pits. I lost a bit of time there, but we're doing all right.
A few moments later.
It turned out we were not all right.
Somehow through all this, I didn't realize that that's our car out there.
And believe me when I say, this is when the drama of the race really began. This was a race that came down to the wire, and I still have another stint, so make sure you subscribe for the third and final part of this Shannonville series.